All right, we're going to move on to the next topic of discussion, which is the title of this podcast. Which sports franchise is the most cursed? Now, this is coming off the heels of the Toronto Maple Leafs dropping an absolute, and I mean absolutely dropping Game 7 of their playoff matchup with the Florida Panthers. They were absolutely beaten down in games in games 4 and 5. They shut out Florida in Sunrise in game 6 long enough to bring their fans back in. And to be fair, in game 7, the first period, they did okay. They kind of got off to a flat start, but starting to improve in the final stages of the period. And then before you can say what the hell, Florida Panthers dropped 3 goals on them in the second period. Give their fans a little bit of a glimpse of light, give them a little bit of hope when Max Domi scored, and then in the third period, and then 54 seconds later, Florida puts one back up on the board, and after that, they just cruised. And you saw fans, if you watched the game, you saw fans throwing jerseys on the ice, throwing beer on the ice. Why you want to do that? It's a waste of good $20 of beer.
Yeah.
And I was watching, and I'm starting to get into. There's a very famous Maple Leafs fan who's been running a YouTube channel for like 15 years, and all he talks about is the Toronto Maple Leafs. His name is Steve Dangle, and I watched his reaction, and he always starts and it's whenever the Maple Leafs are eliminated, he's been starting out his episodes with, "Well, we're here again. You know why you're here. I know why I'm here." It's to see the Maple Leafs fan absolutely lose it. And yeah, they're gone. And it was weird. I don't know about you, but it was a little weird last night. There's no NBA games and there's no Stanley Cup playoff games.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with myself.
I am getting ready to do something very stupid this weekend. I'm going to try to row 70 miles. So I was down rowing a little bit. I have not trained to the degree that I should have for this. So I'll be checking in with people just so that they know I'm alive. But you're right. Like, that's why, because I was like, I feel like there's something I'm supposed to do. And I was like, well, I should go down and row. But this is the first time in a while that there's been nothing sports related on really to watch. And even it was kind of because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even believe the Yankees were on last night. I think their series with the Rangers starts tonight.
They had the night off.
So
rare night off for our Yankees.
Yeah, yeah.
Coming off the rubber match of the Subway Series, which, by the way, a certain former Yankee went 2 for 10 in that entire series. So,
and he also got in trouble for admiring a single. But
yep.
But it was a very strange night because we've gotten so accustomed to hockey, basketball, both or one being on, and also a plethora of baseball games. So it was just a strange night. Yeah, it was a little different.
Yeah. So this got me thinking. I'm watching Steve Dangle, watching friend of the show, Travis Ridgen, watching his podcast, Slanging the Biscuit, with his co-host. His name escapes me for the moment, but I guess he's a big radio host in Winnipeg. I'll think of it. I'll do the real-time research and give him credit. But it's got me thinking. And Dustin and I were texting this afternoon off show. I said, and I thought about doing a rant on Toronto, but I'm like, you know what? The Maple Leafs, but I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I've seen enough of them. People have had their say. We've had 24 hours. People have had 24 hours to mourn, to get their feels out. And yeah, I'm not gonna dogpile. That's not right for me to dogpile because I'm not a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I've expressed my disdain for them on this show because going back to 2000. But it's got me thinking about the most cursed franchises in professional sports. the Toronto Maple Leafs are definitely up there.
They're up there, yeah. They're up there because the thing is, they're a large market team. They're like a larger market team, and they're one of the teams in hockey. Like a lot of hockey fans, if you don't love the Toronto Maple Leafs, you despise the Toronto Maple Leafs because people view them. And the thing is, their fans have expectations every year, as they should usually, because that's the cursed thing about the Leafs is they're usually good enough to give their fans hope every single season. And I'm sorry in advance, Leafs fans. I know it's already tough, but you know what they remind me of, Ryan, and they are not my pick for the most cursed sports franchise, but they remind me of the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are good enough, usually. We all remember the 90s heyday of the Cowboys. The Cowboys fans will be the first to remind you of it, but they haven't done anything since the 90s heyday, and they haven't been able to get to the Super Bowl. But every year, they do enough to get their fans hoping, and then Cowboy fans will start chirping. And then their hearts get ripped out every year. And that's what it feels like is happening with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I say this as an Oilers fan. Edmonton, there have been years where you knew the team was going to be bad. You had no expectations. And that's hard enough, but it's almost worse to be in the position that the Toronto Maple Leafs are in because every year they have expectations. Every year.
Yeah, and we got some comments coming in the comments section. D's Ray Sunshine saying Toronto broke their hockey sticks. They may need new ones.
Yeah.
She's also in shock about you dissing Friends fans.
I'm not necessarily dissing Friends fans. I never got into it. I'm not giving the crown to the Rembrandts for the best theme song. I'm not doing it.
She also says we'll have a search and rescue team ready for you, Dustin. I'll update the people on the socials just to let people know how Dustin is doing. All right.
Yeah.
Let's say Dustin texted me about half an hour ago. He's at 35 miles. He just pooped his pants. He's good to go. He's all right, but he's alive. She also asked, Cubs cursed? No. Cubs aren't cursed because they broke their curse in 2016.
Yes.
And they've been doing okay ever since. In fact, they're currently in first place in the National League Central, albeit by one game because the St. Louis Cardinals have been on a heater
over
the last month. And she also asked Atlanta Falcons. Solid choice for a cursed franchise. I mean,
yeah.
I have 28 reasons why they couldn't be, but I have 3 reasons why they could be.
Yeah, that's a kick in the teeth.
I'm sorry to my new friends in Atlanta. I had to bring up, but they know.
Yeah.
They understand Atlanta sports primarily are not great. But let's talk about some of the other teams we thought of, Dustin. Let's start with you. Like, what do you mentioned your Oilers to an extent. I mean, they've had some success.
Yeah,
they've won a Stanley Cup since 1990, but they had all those cups in the 1980s.
Yes.
So
yes, they've had, and I don't count them because they got to Game 7 in 2006. I don't count my Dallas Mavericks because they did finally win a title.
They also got to Game 7 last year. Came back 3-0 down to force a Game 7.
Yes, that's right. How could I forget? I probably blacked out because I was I just didn't expect them to come back. When they went down 3-0, Ryan, I'm like, this series is over. But they came back. But yes, so they've had too much recent success. You can't count them. For me, it's got to be teams. And I guess some of the other teams I thought of, you had put up there. I hope I'm not revealing it, but the football team that you are a fan of, you threw them out as
how dare you
as a pick.
I did. To be fair, I did.
Yeah. So there's a couple teams, but there's teams and you could make an argument for the Dallas Cowboys, but they're too.
Yeah,
they're too well known.
They have 5. They're the first of 5 Super Bowls. No, I don't count them as cursed.
You can't. You would have to do the recency. But
and you can't count them as cursed because of their incompetent ownership.
Yeah.
Who's also the GM.
That's not their fault. Usually to be cursed, it has to be a team that gets close, and there has to be a little bit of success. You threw out the former Cleveland Indians / Guardians, which they have been in the running in recent years for their division. And I remember when they beat the New York Yankees in the 90s. I'm probably still bitter about it. And
1997.
They had those good teams with like Kenny Lofton and Manny Ramirez, and they had some teams back in the day. And I always rooted for Dennis Martinez. I remember in that World Series, Indians Braves at the time, I was rooting for the Indians because I wanted Dennis Martinez to do it. But really, to me, the more I thought about it, because you could also, recent success aside, you could make an argument for the New York Knicks. There has been a lot of heartbreak, but I think Knicks fans resigned themselves to there's no success. As long as we have our owner, there's no success. And they're turning it around, and I'll be rooting for them. But to me, it's one finalist. And we have some great comments, but I'm going to let you address those. But to me, it's the Cleveland Browns. And astute detectives may have noticed I put in my headline, "Sorry, Drew Carey," because that show famously takes place in Cleveland, and the show Cleveland Rocks. When it comes to the case,
with the crimson lips go Cleveland Rocks. Shout out to the President of the United States of America for that theme song.
Yes, they're a great band. Yeah.
Yes.
But to me, the Cleveland Browns, if you look at first of all, their franchise got moved by an owner. They had a lot of early success, okay, but that wasn't even in the Super Bowl era, so you can't count that, in my opinion. And then they had that run when Marty Schottenheimer was the coach, and they had Ernest Biner. They had that thing go on. They
Bernie
had
Kosar,
yes,
all those guys,
and they had Elway ripped out their hearts in that, and they couldn't get it done with Marty Schottenheimer. And then you had the season where a young upstart coach named Bill Belichick was hired to coach the Browns, and they were on their way. You could see the pieces falling into place. He had a young, great staff with a lot of former and future NFL coaches and college coaches on it, and GMs too. I think, the mix of talent in that room, we didn't know what it was going to be at the time. But what was that, 94, Ryan? Was that 94 when Belichick, or 95, I think Belichick?
It was 95 when they announced that Art Modell announced they were moving the franchise to Cleveland. And yes, Desiree Sunshine, Nick Saban was on that staff as the defensive coordinator.
Yes, he was. And I appreciate you keeping the Bama going. I'm impressed by how long you're able to do it.
She's got too much Bama in her, man.
Yeah. But that's why. And then you talk about they got moved. They didn't have a franchise for a couple of years, and then they've come back. They came back in 1999.
Yep.
And the fans were so happy. And since then, they had not been able to do anything right, from drafting Tim Couch first overall on their inaugural season back in the NFL, all the way up to they finally start having success with Nick Chubb and Baker Mayfield on the roster. Nick Chubb gets hurt and has to do an amazing rehabilitation to come back from injury. And they run Baker Mayfield out of town because of a shoulder injury. And then look what he's doing in Tampa Bay right now, to say nothing of the Deshaun Watson signing. This has transcended, and it's not just the same head coach and same GM. This has transcended. They've brought in different head coaches. They brought in Eric Mangini. They brought in Romeo Cornell. They kept going back to that Belichick tree. This has transcended many, many different coaches, many, many different GMs. They brought in Mike Holmgren to be their quote unquote football czar. That didn't work. Anything Cleveland has tried, they have not been able to do it, and that's why I am picking the Cleveland Browns as the most cursed sports franchise.
Solid pick. Solid pick. We've got some more comments in the comments section. Sick saying the Cleveland Guardians or current Browns. Dustin just pulled up on that
the
point.
current Browns. Also, Kellen Winslow Jr. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Oof.
Just so they bad draft picks, bad trades, so many things for the poor Cleveland Browns fans.
Desiree Sunshine saying Buffalo.
I thought about it.
Well, hold on. She says Buffalo, but she didn't specify the Bills or the Sabres.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's a good question, actually.
It could be either or.
It could be, but the Bills, to me, the football Bills, I discounted them because of their recent success. Again, I mean, getting to 4 Super Bowls and losing them all, that's a tough pill to swallow for sure.
She also says New York Jets. I'm going to build my case in just a moment. Sick saying the Charlotte Hornets. True.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And they had their tenure.
Now, go ahead. Finish your thought. Sorry.
No, it was just they had they got moved to, what was it, New Orleans, and then they had the Charlotte Bobcats. Never really got it going under that moniker.
Nope. And then they changed, and they were allowed to change their name back to the Hornets, the Pelicans. Now the Pelicans give it back to Charlotte. Michael Jordan became majority owner of that team. Now he owns a small stake in the team.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, and by the way, pop quiz for you, Dustin. Since 1999, how many different starting quarterbacks have the Cleveland Browns had?
Oh, geez. All right. For the Browns, you got Tim Couch, you got Kelly, I can't remember, Kelly Holcomb. You got, oh man, so many. I'm going to say since 1999, how many years ago was 1999? I should know this. 26. All right. I'm going to say the Browns have had 32 starting quarterbacks.
You're close. 40.
Oh, man. I almost said 40, but I'm like, that's too high. That's too high.
And I'm going to name them all.
All right. Yeah.
Tim Couch, Ty Detmer, Doug Peterson, Spurgeon Wynn, Kelly Holcomb, Jeff Garcia, Luke McCown, Trent Dilfer, Charlie Fry, Derek Anderson, Brady Quinn, Ken Dorsey, Bruce Gradkowski, Colt McCoy, Jake Delhomme, Seneca Wallace,
Former Seahawks Seneca Wallace,
Brandon Whedon, Thad Lewis,
oh yeah,
Jason Campbell, Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, Connor Shaw, Josh McCown, Austin Davis. Did I say Josh McCown before? No, I didn't.
You just said Josh McCown. I think he had multiple. Did he have multiple tenure with the team though? I don't know.
No, I said Colt McCoy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, Connor Shaw, Josh McCown, Austin Davis, Cody Kessler, RG3, Deshaun Kaiser. Wow, that's a name you haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
Kevin Hogan, Baker Mayfield, Tyrod Taylor, Case Keenum, Nick Mullins, Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, PJ Walker, Jeff Driscoll, Jameis Winston, and Bailey Zappi.
Yeah.
And they have five quarterbacks in their quarterback room now, going into this season.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson,
Shadur Sanders. Who's the other kid they drafted?
Dylan Gabriel.
Yep.
And I can't remember their fifth one. We talked about them too.
It's not Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
No, Dorian Thompson. They traded Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I believe. Kenny Pickett.
Oh, yeah. Kenny Pickett.
Acquired from the Eagles.
Yep, the Eagles, man.
All right. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, wasn't Brandon Whedon like one of the oldest drafted quarterback? Like when he came out, wasn't he like he was up there? He was up there, but I'm eager to hear you build your case, Ryan, because I have a feeling I know where you're going.
Yeah, Brandon Whedon is at current age 41 years old.
Yeah. Hey, Brandon, shout out to you, buddy.
Yeah, good job, buddy. We appreciate you, even if the NFL didn't. Yeah, so I actually wrote an article back in 2021. 4 reasons why the New York Jets are cursed. I'll link it in the description. And this was after Thursday night when they went to Indianapolis, coming off that incredible win against the Cincinnati Bengals, where they finally broke their streak of not scoring 30 points in a game since which era was it? It was the Todd Bowles era, because they didn't score 30 points in a game under Adam Gase. Never scored 30 points in
guru.
That offensive guru.
Yeah.
And they benched. I think this is the game that Mike White made his name known across the hearts of and minds of football fans all across the world. But that game, he broke his thumb. He broke his wrist in the following Thursday night game in Indianapolis, and they bring in Josh Johnson. Who's been with like 10 NFL teams. Crazy.
He's returned to the NFL. I think
and he's back in the NFL.
He is.
So I wrote an article on why the New York Jets are cursed. And this was based on a discussion on, at that time, the Can't Wait podcast, which had Connor Hughes with The Athletic. Now he's with SNY. And on our friend of the show, Rod Peterson, discussing it on his show. And that kind of got me going on why the Jets are cursed. Reason one is because of Joe Willie Namath. I believe he sold his soul to the devil for that win in Super Bowl III. But it was mostly his defense who did all the hard work in that game. Buddy Ryan, masterful job. We love you, Buddy Ryan. Number 2, the fake spike. Dan Marino, curse his name. Under Pete Carroll, by the way. They were under Pete Carroll in that game, and then they lost every game after that game in 1994. And Pete Carroll was let go at the end of that season. And they brought in Rich Kotite for the worst 2 years, arguably, in Jets history. Reason 3, the 2 Bills. Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Reason 4, the GD butt fumble.
Yeah, that one's a tough one, yeah.
They have not been in the playoffs since 2010. They have been except for 2015, they have been nowhere near the playoffs. And this very program in 2023 or 2024, excuse me, both of us said the New York Jets were built. They were built with the roster they had to possibly go to the Super Bowl and possibly win the Super Bowl. They finished 5-12.
Yeah. And to some degree they had to restructure the team. How much did Aaron Rodgers really have to do with that? You could debate that all day. But yeah, I don't know. And how often, Ryan, because I still think about it sometimes, and I'm not even a Jets fan, but you could go back through the things. You know, you had all that success with the New York sack exchange, but they couldn't keep it together. Then you had Dennis Byrd getting paralyzed, and you had, but Nate Kading hit that field goal as the kicker for the Chargers to advance past the Jets. That, if memory serves, Ryan, was that the closest they've been in recent memory? I'm trying to remember, because what was that?
2009, 2010.
Yeah.
In 2009, they were up after the first half on Peyton Manning and the Colts. They were up 17-13 at halftime. That's after Mark Sanchez found Brandon Marshall wide open to take the lead at the half. And then they didn't score a point after that. Then Pittsburgh, 2010, they were down 24-3 at the half, and they clawed all the way back in the second half, did not allow a single point to the Steelers in the second half, and got within 5. And if it weren't for Ben Roethlisberger completing a pass on 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 5 with less than 2 minutes left, if this defense had stopped, Ben Roethlisberger didn't throw that pass to Antonio Brown to seal the game, they would have gotten the ball back. I think they would have scored and taken the lead, and went to the Super Bowl to face the Packers.
Oh, okay. That was the Packers game. Okay.
That was the Packers Super Bowl, because next week, 2 weeks later, it was Pittsburgh, Green Bay, and Dallas, and that cursed Super Bowl where Charles Woodson tore his pec. And he was the best defensive player on that Packers team that season. So, but they still won the Super Bowl. That they think they won by 11. I want to say in that game, but yeah, that's the closest the Jets have been in the Super Bowl in my lifetime. Actually, it's been 4 times. 82 against Miami, 98 against Denver, where they had the lead after the blocked punt by Chad Cascadden. Take the lead into the locker room in Denver, and then they didn't score a point after that.
They advanced wrongly past my Seahawks that year, though.
They faced the Jags.
Oh, okay.
They played the Jaguars in the divisional.
Okay. When was that Seahawks Jets Testaverde game then? I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. Dennis Erickson was coaching the Seahawks back then, I believe.
That might have been 98.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 98, somewhere around there.
That was when the Jets they won I think they won like 9 of their last 10 games that year.
Oh, okay.
And
they were on fire.
And they were on fire. And they could have played the Atlanta Falcons that year, but unfortunately John Elway, team of destiny. Before we do our quick ad read, D-Space Sunshine saying I would have said the Saints because, by the way, if they didn't have that Super Bowl. That's true.
Yeah, that Super Bowl did a lot to exercise their demons for sure.
Mm-hmm.